So in this video, I'm going to go over a little bit how to generate that key square for the Playfair cipher. So certainly when you're first starting the program, you can just kind of hard code that. So remember in Python, we haven't talked a ton about lists yet, but I assume that you've seen them before, that this matrix we're creating is just going to be a list of lists. So we're going to have a list that contains five element lists, okay? So you can certainly just hard code that using, the double brackets to get things going. But you eventually want to be able to allow the user to enter a key, and you're going to turn that key into the square. So you start by putting the letters of the key into the square, and then you add the rest of the letters. Okay, so here's a way that you can do this. So I found a version of this online, then modified it heavily to my taste. So, which is what people do as programmers. So I wanted to start by getting a list of all the letters of the alphabet, okay? And you can type that all in yourself, but there's not really any need. There is a function for that. So I've imported the string library, and there's a string.ascii lowercase, okay? That's a constant in the string library that is a string with all of the letters, A to Z, lowercase. So I'm able to use the list function to convert a string into a list of all the individual elements. So that would be a list of A as a character, then B, and so forth. Okay. So the first time I did this and I ran this, I ended up with one extra row on my array with the Z, because I'd forgotten you have to remove the J. Okay, so I'm just doing from the alphabet I just created, I'm removing the letter J. Okay, so that gets me down to the 25. That should be good. Okay. So the next thing we have to do, we're building up here. We have to create a list, a single list of all of the elements we want in our square. Okay. So we first have to get a list of the letters in the key itself. Okay, we're going to add those first. So that's what I'm doing here. So I'm getting this key letters here. The key again is what we're passing in from the parameters. Okay, so to make sure that there are no repeats, okay, so I'm starting first for I in key. It's going to go through every letter in the key, and I'm asking here if I is not in key letters. Okay, so if it is in key letters, it doesn't add it a second time. Okay, but if it's not, okay, then it's going to append that letter there. Okay. Actually, to be consistent with my own programming, I like that as a C for character, and I would indicate it's an index, and it's not. Okay. So for C in the key, go through all those letters, and if it's not in the key letter, I'm going to add it. So by this point, key letters should contain, in the example we did in class, monarchy, M-O-N-A-R-C-H-Y. That should be all those as individual elements of the list. Okay. So I'm next going to create this square element, which is where I'm going to store all of the elements. I'm going to convert it into a 5 by 5, but for right now, I'm going to keep it all as a single line. Okay. So I'm starting this. The first thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to add all of the elements from the key. Okay. Again, that's the unique elements that they've entered as a key. Okay. So again, I don't like that. That's code that I copied that I'm going to get rid of because it's important to be internally consistent. Okay. So for C and the key letters, then I'm going to say if C is not in the square elements already, okay, add it. Okay. Then this probably isn't absolutely necessary because we've already checked for uniqueness up there, but it doesn't hurt. Okay. So once we've added those, again, we're going to change these to C's. Oh, I know that it's a C. Leave me alone. Sometimes the ID tries to help too much. Okay, that's just a little thing. But again, when I see a C, I know it's a character. If I see an I think it's an index. So we're now going to go through, and this is important to check if not in the square elements. Okay, then we're going to append it. Okay, so this is going to deal with if we go to add an A is already there, right? In monarchy, an A is there. So we don't add an A. we're going to try to add a B. We do add the B. Okay. We don't add the C. That's in monarchy, and so forth. Okay. So that's going to keep going and keep building up the square elements, which is a just one-dimensional list of the 25 letters, starting with the key and then finishing off the alphabet in order as per the Cipher algorithm. Okay. So now we want to turn this into our key square. So I start off making this just a blank list. Okay. And I'm going to add lists to this. Okay. So I'm going to take the square elements that I have, and I'm going to use slicing to turn them into 5-element sublists, which I'm going to add one by one, okay, to get a list of lists. Okay. So it starts off being blank. And now as long as there are square elements, okay, so while it's not equal to a blank list, okay, so as long as there's something there, okay, and this means, or this lets us know that we're going to be removing as we go, okay, so it's going to be destructive to square elements, which we don't need anyway, okay. So the key square, which is what we're going to use to keep it's going to be our 5x5 matrix, we're going to append to that, okay. From the elements that are left, okay, we're going to have a substack, okay, a sub list that starts with 0, starts at the beginning, and goes up and does not include 5. Okay, so it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 5 elements. Okay, so this is a list. Okay, we're going to append this list. Okay, so at the very first time, we would have a list that contains one list with the first 5 letters. Okay, then we're going to go to our square elements, and we're going to remove the first 5. Okay, so this is saying our square elements is equal to what's at square elements, but we're going to start at the 5th one. Okay, so there's 0 through 4 would now be gone. The 5th element is now 0. Okay, and then as long as there's still elements, we're going to keep adding. Okay, so that returns our key square. So in this case, we have a key of monarchy, the key square. I've got this generate key table with the key. Then I'm going to go through, and I'm printing out each of the lists separately. Okay, so it's probably worthwhile to go ahead and print the key square itself, just so you can see that it is a 2-dimensional array. Okay, but I think it's easier to read when I'm going through. So key square sub I, which is 1 dimension, is going to be the first list. Okay, and then we would have the second list and whatever from there. Okay, note also that I should be able to print out the key square 0, 0. That should print out an M. Okay, let's run this, see if I've blown anything up in all this. Okay, here we go. Okay, so here is the list. It's the bigger. Okay, we start with the monarchy. So this is our first row of our 5x5. And then there's the CHY, and then BD, EFG, IK, LP, and you see it goes all the way to Z. Okay, so that's what it really looks like, again, with the double brackets showing that this is the first element of that. Okay, so when I'm printing just the individual ones, this prints it as the 5x5 that we would imagine. Okay, and then you can see also that I was able to address 0, 0 is the first row, first column. Okay, so from this, once you get this part working, you should be able to go ahead and start the encryption process. Okay, so and it's all going to be finding the letters, noting their rows and columns, and then making adjustments and rewriting the letters based on their positions and those 3 rules. Okay, so hopefully this video will help you get started in this process. Okay, so if you have questions, we're going to talk about this more in class on Friday, but I wanted to give you a little heads up if you were having trouble with this part of it. Okay.